Hello everybody. Yeah, long time no see. Thing is really happening fast in China. Coronavirus. Everybody talk about it. It's become a world event. What struck me actually recently, I read some media which reported that there is a new phenomenon, that is Chinese are being discriminated. Yeah? There are some racist discrimination going on in Europe and in North America. The most typical example is, I would say, Wall Street Journal, who published an article with the title, "China is really the sick man of Asia." Yeah? And that caused thousands of Chinese who signed up for a petition, for the White House petition. You know, White House offer people to make petition to the American government. And if you manage to come up to 100,000, then they will process it and handle it. Yeah. So that's for me interesting. And also in a French newspaper, they have a title called Yellow Danger, and that was also accused by the Chinese to be racist and discriminative. Now, before I analyze, this phenomena, I have to also clarify a little bit. The article published by Wall Street Journal, China is really the sick man of Asia. I thought, maybe they talk about, this terrible coronavirus and put the whole guilty on China and so on. But when I gone through quickly this article, I found out this article actually is talking about Chinese economy. It does mention coronavirus. Yeah, in the beginning, it said because of coronavirus, all these 30-odd cities are locked down and so on. So a lot of transportation are stopped and so on. Of course, it will have a heavy impact on the economy. So the article was telling us that the Chinese financial market and the Chinese economy is becoming a sick man of Asia. So what's that racist and what is that discriminating? So this is interesting. Now, what I would like to share with you is my thinking about how come some Chinese are so sensitive, so oversensitive. Very easily they call Westerners are discriminating us. They are racist. That's interesting. One thing I noticed, I'm also a Chinese. I have been living in Europe for 50 years. In all these decades, I have been basically every country in Europe, and I have been many times in America and other countries. But to be honest, I never felt I was discriminated because I was Chinese. No. Some people may be unfriendly to me, but that is probably because of my personality. Maybe I have done something not very friendly, not very polite, but not very considerate. Yeah, maybe, but it's very seldom, I have to say. So, and then I noticed those Chinese, I know a lot of Chinese, both from mainland China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. I noticed that those who very easy to get sensitive and claim that this is a discrimination, this is a racist act, 99% of them are mainland Chinese and not Taiwan Chinese and not Hong Kong Chinese. You guys should know, we in Hong Kong, those Chinese in Taiwan, culturally, historically, we are 100% Chinese, no difference. Yeah? Only politically, we are different. In the last 70 years, we've been living in totally different political systems. That maybe is the reason which make the difference. Why I say it? Because I notice in China, you guys may not know, for a Chinese person, for a Chinese say, younger than 60. Huh? The only thing he or she has heard since they were in the kindergarten is how this damn foreigner, particularly the Western foreigner, how they bully Chinese, how they invade China. They tell all the children about, the 8 countries Allied army invaded China, burned down the Chinese palace and all this. Well, to a certain extent, except some exaggeration, it was a fact. It was really invasion from an army, which is an Allied army from 8 countries. Yeah, that is a fact. That's true. But usually, the trick with this brainwashing and propaganda is they start telling you the story from chapter 2 and skip chapter 1. So what is chapter 1? Well, chapter 1 is before this so-called invasion from 8 countries. There was a movement called the Boxer movement. The Boxer movement at the end of the Qing dynasty was a very racist movement. They were very anti-foreigners. They killed quite a few Western missionaries and Western diplomats. Yeah? And that, of course, upset some countries. And so they all get angry and agree to join together and give China a lesson. Of course, this 8 country who sent their joint army to China is a wrongdoing. But at that time, in the end of Qing dynasty, the empress of Qing dynasty was encouraging this Boxer to fight against the foreigner. It's an old trick, because at that time, you can say the dictator is approaching its end. They are in trouble. So they want to distract the Chinese people. Instead of giving chance for Chinese people to look at their wrongdoing, they build up a hatred against foreigner. And unfortunately, we are experiencing the same thing. We have to understand these poor Chinese, since they were a child, they only learn how bad all these European countries have been doing to China, how bad Americans are doing. You know, in China, there is a common saying, because they learn it from the propaganda. It says the aim or the goal of the American imperialists to eliminate China never disappear, they say, never disappear. So it's very interesting. So they really put in a lot of effort and energy to, you can say, to implant a sort of hatred, towards America, towards European. So, and interesting is, this is absolutely a racist act. Now, this regime, these people who have been spreading such a racist theory for 1.4 billion people, now they are blaming the Westerner who are the racists. Well, I'm not saying that in Western world there is no racist. Maybe there is still racist here and there, but it is absolutely not like many mainland Chinese got in their perception that, this behated Westerner are doing all this bad thing to us. Yeah? Well, there are even theory in China now saying that this coronavirus is a biological weapon activated by America to kill Chinese. I mean, this is nonsense. Of course, they don't say that in their official newspaper or media, but that's the trick. In China, you have heard about this 50 cents army. It's a huge number of Chinese helping them to spread this kind of theory in the internet, like an army. And by the way, as I mentioned a couple of times in my video, that the Chinese Communist Party tried to organize the whole country as one single army. The party boss is the commander-in-chief. and all people are just soldiers, more or less. Yeah, more or less. In a even more open or more even worse way to say it is everybody is treated actually as slave, but they do it in a very smart way, in such a smart way that people don't even know that they are manipulated, they are enslaved. Yeah, because they have a very simple principle: if you do not criticize the party, if you always do as the party tells you to do, you can have a pretty good life. You don't have any problem. But if you just raised a question or you are just doing something that the party doesn't like, then you are in big trouble. I'm going to tell you a very recent example, and that is, you probably have heard about a Chinese doctor called Mr. Li, Dr. Li. He was one of the, or maybe even the very first person as a doctor in Wuhan who, through the social media, informed his friends in the same chat group, who are mainly also medical doctors, about the new discovered unknown virus. At that time, he called it SARS-like virus, yeah? Because he didn't know. It was very new. And it was so great, because if his information was spread to the whole world, so we would have saved many, many thousands of lives, because people would start isolating infected person at that time. At that time was only a few, very, very few people infected. But instead of spreading his news, he was arrested. He was asked by the police to accept, to confess that he was doing wrong, and to sign some paper saying that he did make a wrongdoing. So, terrible. And what happened is, this doctor of conscience, he died. And that has initiated a tremendous movement in the internet for the Chinese neticizer. More than 5,000 comments, articles, messages, was posted in the most popular Chinese social media, WeChat. And all these 5,000 messages contain the keyword: we want freedom of expression. We want freedom of press. So that's fantastic, 5,000. And more than 2 million people read that or viewed it. And then within 5 hours, and a lot of them make comment, very angry of the government trying to block information, so that indirectly a lot of people lost their life because of that. So, and those messages was all deleted the same day by the Chinese internet police. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are facing a big challenge, and that is 1.4 billion Chinese. Many of them are, as I said in the beginning, misled. They got manipulated to have hatred against Westerner. That's one thing. But luckily, in the incidents of Dr. Li, some of them are waking up. But 2 million is still a drop in the sea, a drop of water in the sea. Yeah? But everything starts small and will grow. And so I think we in the West, we have to help Chinese people to find out the truth. They are living in a society where there is only one single voice, and that is the voice of CCP, Chinese Communist Party. You must understand, China is still a totalitarian state where there is no freedom of press, no freedom of expression. You cannot find one single television, radio, newspaper, or whatever, or internet, which is free. So this is very dangerous. So help to free China, help to free the Chinese people so they know the truth. And the Chinese people are intelligent enough. Once they know the truth, they know what to do. Thank you. If you like it, don't forget to push subscribe or like and spread it to your friends and relatives. Thank you. Bye-bye.